The room didn't feel unusual at first. It looked like any other congressional hearing, cameras quietly recording, staffers shuffling documents, and lawmakers preparing for another long session of debate. Most viewers watching expected the same familiar routine: formal speeches, predictable disagreements, and a meeting that would likely fade from public attention within hours. But something felt different. There was a tension in the air that didn't match the usual rhythm of government proceedings. It was subtle, almost invisible, yet noticeable in the careful way lawmakers spoke and in the quiet pauses between conversations. Jasmine Crockett sat calmly, observing more than speaking. Her posture was steady, her expression composed. She had developed a reputation for being sharp and precise, not loud or theatrical, but focused and deliberate. Across the room sat Marjorie Taylor Greene, equally prepared but known for a very different style. Greene's approach to politics was bold, confrontational, and unpredictable. When she spoke, attention followed whether people agreed with her or not. Two very different political personalities. Two very different approaches to power. And they were about to collide. At first, the hearing moved slowly, almost predictably. Opening statements stretched on as committee rules were reviewed and procedural remarks filled the record. It sounded routine, but frustration was quietly building beneath the surface. Small interruptions began appearing. A reaction here. A sharper tone there. Nothing dramatic yet, but enough to signal that patience in the room was wearing thin. Greene began speaking again, this time with more energy. Her voice carried across the room, gradually pulling attention away from side conversations. The discussion slowly drifted from policy details towards something more personal. Not directly, but close enough that everyone could feel it approaching. Congressional hearings operate on rules. Emotions do not. Crockett remained quiet, watching carefully. She appeared to be waiting for the right moment, not the first one. That patience would soon matter. The chair reminded members to maintain order, but the tension continued rising. Greene spoke faster now, her tone sharper. Lawmakers exchanged glances. Everyone understood how quickly hearings can turn into headlines. The chair attempted to guide the conversation back toward official topics, but momentum had already shifted. The discussion no longer felt procedural. It felt personal. Crockett reached toward her microphone. She didn't speak yet. She simply prepared. The cameras caught the movement, small, but meaningful. Greene finished her remarks, leaning back with visible confidence. For a brief moment, the room fell silent. Then Crockett pressed her microphone button. She paused before speaking. That silence made people listen more closely than any raised voice could have. When she began, her tone was calm and steady. She spoke deliberately, choosing her words with care. She redirected attention back toward the purpose of the hearing and reminded the room about professionalism and responsibility in public office. Her words weren't aggressive. They were controlled. And control carries power. Greene leaned forward again, ready to respond. The back-and-forth rhythm of political confrontation had officially begun. Interruptions followed, forcing the chair to restore order repeatedly. Crockett remained composed. Her calmness didn't appear forced, it looked intentional. Greene responded with sharper language, her tone carrying visible frustration. The hearing was no longer about documents or testimony. It had become about presence, authority, and perception. Another lawmaker attempted to redirect the conversation back to policy, briefly cooling the tension. But the emotional momentum remained. Then came the moment that changed everything. Greene delivered a remark that crossed into personal territory, a comment about appearance rather than policy or procedure. The atmosphere in the room shifted instantly. For a split second, no one reacted. Then discomfort spread across the committee. Some lawmakers looked down. Others turned toward Crockett, waiting to see what would happen next. Another member quickly raised a point of order, attempting to stop the exchange from escalating. The chair struck the gavel, reminding everyone to avoid personal remarks. But the tension remained because once words are spoken, they cannot be taken back. Crockett slowly leaned toward her microphone again. She inhaled and paused, holding the room in complete silence. When she finally spoke, her voice remained calm. But now it carried unmistakable resolve. She addressed the moment without raising her voice. She spoke about respect within congressional proceedings and emphasized that debates should focus on issues affecting Americans, not personal characteristics. The clarity of her response quieted the room. It wasn't anger. It was precision. Greene appeared ready to respond again, but the energy in the chamber had already changed. The dynamic between confrontation and composure had shifted the entire atmosphere. The chair attempted to restore structure, guiding the hearing back toward its official agenda. Another committee member asked a technical policy question, trying to reset the tone. For a moment, it worked. The discussion returned to formal language and routine questioning. But the earlier exchange lingered like an echo. Crockett sat quietly, listening with the same composed focus she had shown from the beginning. She did not appear satisfied or upset. She appeared steady. Greene later re-entered the discussion, speaking more carefully and returning to policy topics. The rapid confrontation from earlier had slowed noticeably. Crockett eventually spoke again, acknowledging the tension without repeating the personal remark directly. Instead, she discussed the standards expected from public officials and reminded the room that hearings are watched by millions of Americans. Her message was simple but powerful: disagreement is normal in politics, but boundaries still matter. Then she delivered the statement that would define the moment. She explained that personal attacks do not weaken their targets, they weaken the institution itself. The words settled heavily across the room. No one interrupted. Even the usual background noise of papers and whispers seemed to stop. The hearing continued after that, but the rhythm had changed. Lawmakers spoke more carefully. Questions sounded more deliberate. Disagreements carried softer edges. The confrontation had reshaped the discussion without needing to be mentioned again. Eventually, the chair moved toward closing remarks. Papers were gathered. Microphones were turned off. The hearing ended quietly without dramatic final statements or raised voices. But outside the committee room, the story was just beginning. Within minutes, video clips from the exchange began spreading across social media. Viewers replayed the moment repeatedly, the remark, the pause, and Crockett's response. News outlets picked up the footage. Commentators debated professionalism, political tone, and public accountability. The hearing itself became secondary to the human moment captured inside it. Supporters praised Crockett's composure. Critics debated the confrontation. But nearly everyone agreed the exchange had captured something powerful about modern political discourse. By evening, the clip had become one of the most shared political moments of the day. Analysts discussed the importance of messaging, optics, and emotional control during televised hearings. Crockett later spoke briefly about maintaining professionalism in public office. Her tone remained consistent with what viewers had already seen: calm, measured, and focused on responsibility rather than conflict. Greene addressed the exchange as well, emphasizing strong debate and political differences. Two perspectives. Two political styles. One moment connecting them. By the next morning, the hearing itself was no longer the primary story. The confrontation had become the symbol people remembered. Both lawmakers returned to their normal schedules. Politics moved forward, as it always does. But the exchange remained part of the public record, replayed whenever conversations about congressional decorum and political debate resurfaced. Because sometimes the most powerful political moments are not the loudest ones. Sometimes they are defined by how people respond when tension reaches its peak. The cameras had stopped recording hours earlier. But the moment they captured was still being watched.